My quietest student roasted a bully so hard in my class he transferred schools the next week, but I was laughing too hard to stop him. From the first day of school, I knew this kid Brixton was going to be my worst nightmare. He was one of those SoundCloud rapper in training types, and the second he walked in, I noticed the gold chain, the AirPods Max around his neck, and the fact that he had his own mixtape QR code printed on the back of his hoodie. I'd heard things about him from other teachers, and I knew he wasn't going to sit quietly. He interrupted my class constantly, tried to get every girl to scan his Spotify, and never stopped playing beats out loud from his phone. Every time I heard some lo-fi trap loop playing from under his desk, I had to tell him to put the phone away because the whole class could hear it. But every time I did, he'd lean back and say stuff like, "Nah, you just don't got ears for real music," then laugh about it with his two friends 10 minutes later. He'd make fun of other kids too, telling one that his shoes looked like they came from a gas station, and calling another one broke just because he brought lunch from home. He kept calling himself the next big thing, even though his whole Spotify barely had any monthly listeners, and half of those were his cousins. Every time I sent him to the office, his dad would call me the next morning. His dad was also his manager, and he'd explain that Brixton couldn't afford distractions because he was this close to getting signed. He asked me constantly to go easy on him because his son had real bars and school was just a backup plan. When I told him Brixton was actually failing 2 of my classes, he didn't like that at all. He asked me to name students who were doing well so Brixton could study their grind. And when I named one, Brixton walked into my class the next day with a new target. This quiet kid who sat in the back row. He never spoke, never raised his hand, but he had the highest grade in the class, and I'd honestly never even heard his voice. Brixton picked him immediately. He started making fun of his backpack, his handwriting, even the way he held his pencil, but the kid never reacted once. I wasn't even sure he could talk at this point. But since Brixton had been calling him NPC almost every day, I thought maybe I could force them to get along. Another teacher told me she made students click by pairing them on projects, and since we had a big group assignment coming up, I thought putting them together was the move. However, only a few minutes into the project, I realized I had made a huge mistake. Brixton immediately started clowning the quiet kid in front of his two friends, doing voices, mocking how he wrote, trying to get the biggest laugh he could, and this time it looked different. I could tell it was actually getting to the quiet kid because Brixton was performing for an audience. And while all this was happening, I noticed the quiet kid was the only one actually working on the assignment. So when I walked back over, I said, "Brixton, why aren't you doing anything? He's doing the whole project." Brixton leaned back, one AirPod in, scrolling through his own SoundCloud stats. "Nah, he likes it. He ain't got no bars, no girl, no life. Let him cook." That finally got his two friends to laugh, and I saw Brixton smirk because he finally got the reaction he wanted. But that's when I noticed it. The quiet kid's eyes were starting to water. He looked up at me, and I could see exactly how much this one hurt. And that's when I decided something had to be said. Someone had to shut this kid down. So I walked back over and said loud enough for the whole class to hear, "Hey Brixton, don't talk to him like that. He's doing all your work for you. For all you know, he might be the one producing your music one day." Brixton finally looked up from his phone. He looked genuinely offended and sat up ready to fire back something nasty. But just before he could, the quiet kid spoke for the first time all year. Without missing a beat, he said, "No thanks. I don't produce for rappers with 12 monthly listeners." The whole class went dead silent and then absolutely lost it. Brixton grabbed his stuff and stormed out of